Hello, art historians. Today we are going to discuss there it is, the Alexander Mosaic from the House of the Faun in Pompeii. We talked a little bit about Pompeii last time, and here we are again discussing our little house here. All right, so here we are in 100 BCE. When the House of the Veti was constructed, originally it was constructed during Imperial Rome, okay, during the 2nd century BCE. Now we've moved into 100 BCE, and so now we're dealing with the Republican era of Rome. So yet again, we're dealing with the Romans being great big stealers of things. So this is a mosaic, and we'll talk about mosaic in a minute. It's 9 feet high by 16 and 3/4 feet long. A mosaic is an artwork that is made by using or putting together these little tiny tesserae or tiles. Okay, these little tiny square tiles. And so what you see here are these little teeny tiny square tiles that are used to create this image. Now, what's interesting about this image is this was found on a floor. This is a floor. And it's a floor of a house in Pompeii called House of the Faun. And it's called House of the Faun because it had a really beautiful statue of a faun. And House of the Faun is, without a doubt, what would have been the most expensive, most elaborate, most lavish picture in all of house in all of ancient Pompeii. And so what we're looking at here when we're looking at House of the Faun, is we're looking at a work of art that would have been really, really important for studying and for archaeology and for looking at the kinds of things that archaeologists, art historians, that they want to know about why things look the way that they do. And one of the first things we figure out is that this is an incredibly elaborate piece. It has 1.5 million tiles, and it is a Roman copy of a Greek original. Now, this is interesting. How do you steal from the Greeks when it's like this? Well, remember we said the Romans like to take things that were Greek and make them their own. So this was originally a Greek painting. It would have been on the wall. That's why suddenly all of this area at the top makes sense, because this is the background. Here's your horizon line. So we're looking at what would have been a painting. But the Romans liked it so much that they wanted to make it into tiles. And it's very hard to hang this much mosaic on the wall. And mosaic is typically done on the floor. And so this becomes a Roman copy of a Greek original. Now, remember that Alexander the Great, this is Alexander the Great, by the way, Alexander the Great, he gets into this fight with the Persians. Here's Darius. Okay. And what we see here is this critical moment where Darius is in a battle with my brain is having a hiccup. When Darius is in a battle with Alexander the Great, the Greek original dates to about 315 BCE. Here we see one of the most important battles in the history of Greece. And so here Alexander is charging in. He is feeling very confident. He is young and he is handsome. His horse is riding into battle. And here is Darius, who looks some combination of worried, surprised, fearful. Alexander is confident, powerful, strong. And this is the moment where Darius orders a retreat. And that change in the momentum is clear. Watch here. Here is Darius's chariot. We see his chariot in the process of it was going this way. Now all the horses have turned around and they're going this way. Darius is turned around and he's retreating. His soldiers are retreating. We are trampling over the dead of, some of the bodies of the dead that didn't have a chance to retreat. Look at this poor guy. He's getting killed. And so, here we see the movement of the horses. This horse has almost all of its hooves off the ground. We're in a canter. We have the wounded, we have the dying, we have the dead. And this is really critically important in that this is the battle where Alexander the Great is able to defeat the Persians, and then he goes on to, unify Greece, defeat the Persians, then defeat the Egyptians, so that Egypt becomes part of the Greek Empire. He has a gigantic empire. This is like a really, really super important moment for the Greeks. And thus, because the Romans then conquered Greece, this becomes a really important piece for Roman history too. Because here the Romans can be like, look, Alexander the Great was amazing. He unified Greece. He defeated the Persians. He defeated the Egyptians. And look, here we are. We're the Romans, and we defeated him. Well, not exactly him, because he was dead by that point. But by taking the land that Alexander the Great had taken, the Romans believed that it showed them to be better than the Greeks ever had been. So it's clear that the owners of the House of the Fawn wanted to memorialize this moment. And so they had, we believe they probably had a painting of this piece, of this moment, and they had artisans create a mosaic floor that captures sort of the excitement, the momentum, the worry, the confidence, the importance, all of these things. It's super important that we have this piece, and then we keep it forever because in 79 CE, Vesuvius erupts and covers Pompeii in ash. And so when we are able to dig this up, it underwent a little bit of damage in the eruption and this following centuries, but it's in pretty great condition. And so here we have the Alexander mosaic and battle scene from the House of the Fawn. I love the piece of this horse that's dead here. I love this picture of the soldier with his hand on his head. He's so upset. What are we going to do? And the panic is clear. So we're moving on to our next piece. This is a really, really important piece. And I know I say that a lot, but we're in sort of some of these, the time period where just a lot of this stuff is really, really, really important. So we have here the head of a Roman patrician. Okay, we're during Republican Rome. So it's kind of like, Greece, where we have a republic. But instead of, a democracy where it's ruled by all of the people, the republic was ruled only by men of wealth. So the wealthiest men, white, free, wealthy men, were the ones who ran the republic. And so this is the time period just before the Caesars come in and it just becomes chaos. So what is a patrician? A patrician is an aristocrat, okay? And it's an old aristocrat. There was to be considered a patrician, pater, the idea of father in there, a father figure, someone who is influential and can help run the country. The Roman patrician here, there was an age requirement, and you had to be old, and because you had to be older to be a patrician, it meant that we talked about this. With age comes wisdom, and so look at how old he is. Okay, look at all the wrinkles. Look at the sagging in his face. Look at the hollowness of his jaw. This piece is not meant to show the most perfect, idealized person. This is meant to consciously show the attributes or characteristics that are attached to being a Roman patrician, an older man who is valued for his wisdom and his age. There's a reverence here. That word reverence is really important. There's a gravitas. That's a word that I have probably haven't used yet. Gravitas, Gravitas, a seriousness, a gravitas, like a weightiness to him. And it is what is called a virtus piece. It shows his virtue. Then there's this other word that you need to know. This is an artsy word, veristic, veristic. And a veristic, verify, veristic, that's something that's truthful. This is considered a portrait of truth. It is meant to show that he is old. It is meant to show that he is wise. It is meant to show that he is intelligent. It is meant to show that he can be trusted to lead the republic because he is experienced and he is knowledgeable. Okay, he is not idealized. He's influenced a little bit by Hellenistic Greece and Etruscan art, but definitely not to the point of being idealized. If anything, what the part of him that is idealized is his age. But this is definitely a conscious decision to attach a meaning to the way someone looks. And so it's kind of propaganda, right? So then we get into when this period is over and we're done with the Republican Rome and we get back into imperial Rome again when there are Caesars, we get a different kind of propaganda. Here we've got a propaganda that is focusing on age and knowledge and experience. When we move into the next time period, which is this time period, back to imperial Rome, the 1st century CE, this is propaganda at its height, okay? This is Augustus, Caesar Augustus, and this is, it's called Augustus of Prima Porta. Prima Porta was the name of his vacation home where this piece was found. So that's what Prima Porta is. Augustus of Prima Porta. This was in their vacation home, in their villa. His wife's villa. She lived in Prima Porta at their villa. Her name was Livia, and she was his wife, and she lived at the villa most of the time. He was often in Rome, being in charge of things. So this is marble. It was always marble. It didn't start as a bronze thing because we're Roman now. We're full Roman. Interesting is that this is not carved in the round. It's only carved on the front. It's meant to be sort of pushed against a wall. And the reason for that is there were a bunch of them made. And you just didn't have time to carve the back. And we'll talk about why that is. Okay. So apparently Augustus he wanted to be powerful. He wanted to be important. He wanted to be respected. And he wanted to do all of this and wanted you to think that he was godlike. And in thinking that he was godlike, what he wanted you to do was basically he wanted you to think that he was descended from gods. And that's when you go, but he wasn't descended from gods, right? But he wants you to think he is. And so there's a lot of iconography that goes on here that explains what this piece is and why it looks like this. And the reason is because there were a bunch of these statues and they were sprinkled all throughout the Roman Empire. So in Egypt, in Greece, in Persia, in all of the places that Rome was in charge. And the reason that they were all over the place is because you couldn't go to Rome and see the emperor. But they wanted you to know that there was an emperor, and they wanted you to know what he looked like, and they wanted you to know that he was in charge, and they wanted you to be humbled by him, and they wanted you to fear him a little bit. And so Augustus had a bunch of these made and sprinkled throughout the empire, so that wherever you were, whatever the big town was or whatever, there would be a statue of Augustus. And he would be looking very, very powerful and very impressive, and you would be humbled by him. And so what they wanted to happen in Greece is they wanted you to sort of think about, they wanted there to be like a golden age of Rome, kind of like there was a golden age of Greece. That's what Augustus wanted. That's what the Romans wanted. And so that's what they worked towards here. So I'm going to switch to the next screen to show you a couple of things. So let's start looking at some of this iconography. Remember what I said before when we were doing the Parthenon, that this stuff would have been brightly painted. And that's so that it would catch your eye. That's so that you would look at it and be moved by it. So this is not an exact portrait. It is a likeness of Augustus probably, but it would have been, here comes that word again, it would have been idealized because he needed to look godlike and youthful. Okay. He's got his right hand up pointing. This is actually a specific thing called the orator's pose, ORATOR, orator, one who speaks and gives speeches and can be trusted to lead us with their language. So he's in the orator's pose with his hand up like that. Okay. There is the possibility that in his left hand, he either had a sword or a staff. We don't know which. We know something was in his hand. We're not exactly sure which. This reconstruction has a staff in his hand. Some reconstructions have a sword in his hand. Okay. Then we got this little guy. This little guy confuses people, like really confuses people, because you really got to be able to understand what is going on here. Remember, this is propaganda. You couldn't see the emperor, but here's the picture of the emperor, and here's how the emperor tries to convince you that he is really important. So he's got the orator's pose here. He's got some symbol of power, whether it's a scepter or a sword. Okay. He has this fabric that is on him. This is the fabric of someone that is important politically. He's a speaker, a civic ruler. He's a guy that's in charge. That's what the robes are. The robes are the robes of someone who is a civic ruler. But he's got on this really cool breastplate that would have been leather and then embossed and then painted. And so he's got on this breastplate that shows that he's a warrior. So he's got all of this cool stuff. And he's in that doryphorus pose. Look at him. He's got the leg bent. He's got this arm out. He's got the weight on here. He's got something over here. So he's balanced that weight in the canon of proportions. So what's going on with our little dude down here? So our little dude down here is Cupid, like Cupid, like with the bow and arrow and makes people fall in love, Cupid. And he's riding on the back of a dolphin. What? Because a dolphin is the symbol of Neptune and of the sea. And Cupid is the son of Venus. Okay. And Venus came, like Aphrodite and Venus came out of the water, right? So Cupid is the son of Venus. Aeneas is believed to be the son of Venus. He is a human that is believed to have Venus be his mother. And Augustus is actually related to Aeneas. So if Aeneas is part god and Augustus is related to Aeneas, then that means that Augustus is part god. And so this is how they remind you of that. Cupid is the son of Venus. Aeneas is the son of Venus. So like Augustus is just as important as Cupid because they're all related to Venus. That's really what this statue is trying to tell you. And the Romans would have understood this iconography. They would have been like, oh my God, look, there's Cupid riding on the back of a dolphin because Neptune. And, oh my gosh, he's related to Venus. Okay. So notice that his feet are bare. Why are his feet bare? Think about it for a second. Think about it for a second. Think about it for a second. Because gods walk on sacred ground and you don't wear your shoes when you're on sacred ground. So this is again, underscoring that idea that he is a god because he doesn't have his shoes on because he's on sacred ground. And on his breastplate, you see the god of the sky and the goddess of the earth, right? And they are talking to each other and showing you Augustus, okay? And so you have the god of the sky and the goddess of the earth, right? And Augustus in the middle. And he's been blessed by both of them. Okay, so it's like he's wearing his resume. He's got his robes of the civic leader. He's got his orator's pose. He's got his weapon of power. He's got his breastplate that shows that he's a warrior. He's got the gods and goddesses on his breastplate and by his feet. And he was incredibly politically significant. He said that he was going to reestablish the Senate. Of course, he doesn't reestablish the Senate. He wants to be in charge. He wants there to be this confusion of between whether he was a divine ruler or whether he is, whether he's a divine ruler or whether he's just a person. And so that is meant here to confuse you. And so that is what we have here with Augustus of Prima Porta. There's definitely the confusion between human and divine. There's the confusion between imperial ruler versus trying to convince you that he is going to bring back the Senate with this orator's pose. There's a lot that's going on here, and he just wants you to believe all of it about him so that you will support him. And so that is where we are with Augustus of Prima Porta. He really wants you to believe in who he is. And so we see this breastplate, we see the chariot with the rising sun, we see the setting sun, we see the personification of the sky. He's literally holding up the sky. We see the personification of the earth and the cornucopia. I mean, we literally see all of these symbols that show us that Augustus is really important. And that is where we're going to end today with Augustus of Prima Porta. And we'll pick up next time with probably the most famous building in all of Rome, the Colosseum. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.